Do you remember the first time you stepped into an arena to witness a collision of good versus evil? The excitement in the air, the roar of the crowd, and of course, the blood. It's time to relive those memories big time. A historical wrestling lesson taught by your professors, the legendary Terry Sullivan and Supermouth Dave Drason. Rocks TV and International Big Time Wrestling present Big Time Memories.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Big Time Wrestling Memories. I'm Terry Sullivan along with Dave Drason. Thank you for all the positive feedback on the shows we've done so far, and a lot more coming up, including today.
Oh,
the one and only Irish Mickey Doyle.
Oh, good friend, good friend. This should be fun.
Yeah.
Well, his name is really Mike Doyle.
No kidding.
And he's like one of the few big-time wrestling stars that are still with us. We know, the main characters like the Sheik and Bobo, Tex McKenzie, Furpo, they have all passed away. But Mike is still with us. And, I talk to him every so often, and it's... He's a great friend, great guy to be around, great friend. And let's talk about his career.
Yeah, I can remember very specifically when he first broke in, but as far as his training, he was a Lou Klein student.
Yeah, he was a great athlete in high school, specialized in baseball, but he kept on getting injured. And he was into wrestling, always attended shows at the Olympia Stadium and Cobo Arena in Detroit. And he had aspirations. And one day he went to Klein's gym, the dump that was in Allen Park, Michigan, I'm sorry to say, but I could tell you stories about, as a young kid going in there. And it's
I'll have to do a segment on that one of these days.
Yeah, it was, bare bones, a hard mat. They only had ring ropes on one side, and they were made out of garden hose. And if you went into the ropes, they didn't have much give, but if you did go into them at least an inch or two, you ran into the pop machine that he had there. But, Mickey got his training there, and, he lived there for a while, too, in the back rooms, and, trained with guys like Bobby Blaine and Sonny King and Linda Klein and, a host of others who were Big Jim Lancaster,
right, yeah.
who were also students at Klein's gym. Mm-hmm. And, that's where he got his training, and he made his, debut going against, he was used as an enhancement talent, in his beginning, but he had really nice complimentary things said to him, mainly by Lord Layton, who was really behind him.
Yeah, I can remember very clearly when Mickey started, and I think it was still on CKLW from Windsor at that time.
Channel
this would
9.
have been what year? 67, 68?
68.
Thereabouts?
68, 69.
And I can remember Mickey, we talk about an enhancement talent. That's somebody who is put in, and mainly they're inexperienced, they're green, and more than often than not, they lose. They're just getting started. And that was the case with Mickey. Except Mickey came in and he had something that, with the exception perhaps of Sonny King, that a lot of the students out of Lou Klein's gym just didn't have that much of. Mickey had charisma. Mickey was an athlete. Mickey could go. He had drive. He was so natural in that ring, just a beautiful technician, and that showed. And Lord Layton, who had the ability as the commentator at ringside to really make or break a star in that ring, took to Mickey Doyle. And I mean, Mickey had it all. Good-looking young guy. Layton would say, well, the young ladies go crazy. They're sending me mail about Mickey Doyle. But
he had a
Layton
good physique.
Layton really put him over.
Yes, he did. And, to the crowning achievement of Mickey Doyle, in his first few years, he was crowned 1971 Rookie of the Year. and for good reason. He, like we said, he was a great athlete. He was an up-and-coming wrestler who was going to make it, in time. But at the time he was working Detroit, he just wasn't getting a lot of wins. He wasn't getting a big push, and I think it was time for him to leave the territory and go somewhere else to see if he could, make a name for himself.
Along with that means he wasn't making much green.
Yeah. Well, I know Mickey, and we talked about it before, and like some of the payoffs that he got, he'd go and do, a match somewhere, and counting food and gas and hotel and everything, he ended up
Klein's percentage.
Lou Klein's percentage at the time too, the 10%, but he would end up losing money in the long run.
Yeah.
When he came home.
Right. Yeah.
And that was the plight of a lot of wrestlers, up and coming in that day. But he went down south, went to Alabama, Mississippi area.
Gulf Coast.
Right, the Gulf Coast territory. And he hooked up with a crazy guy by the name of Mike Boyette. Really wild, crazy kind of guy. Had a look about him, and he was another great athlete. And they teamed him up with Mickey, and they became the California hippies. They had the big bushy hair. They wore the, psychedelic clothes of the day, and they were a big hit. They made it really big. And, their time down south in the Gulf Coast, they made a name for themselves, and, that they were wanted. The other parts of the territory, in Texas and in California, and that's where they went next, to California. And the only problem was Mike Boyette, he was a loose cannon, and he missed being home. And what ended up happening is he left Mickey, he went back home and left Mickey in California, to fend for himself. And he did, he traveled around, making good, but it came time that he had to come home, and, he came back to big time wrestling and was welcomed back. And, he had more experience, more talent, and he started picking up some wins. But then, things kind of soured. He just wasn't making enough money to support a family and to buy a home and a car and, things like that you need to become a successful person, not only as a wrestler, but in life.
Not to mention no retirement plan or pension or anything like that.
Right. And smart as he was, he ended up taking a job at the U.S. Post Office. And that's where he got a good pay, and he got health care, and he got insurance, and he got everything.
Sure.
So he was doing wrestling on the side. And what happened, he was off for a few years, and doing his post office thing and making, a good career for himself. And one day he was at, I think it was either the Sheraton Cadillac Hotel or the Guardian building in downtown Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
And he happened to run into a guy that he knew, and his name was Al Costello, one of the Fabulous Kangaroos from, time ago.
Yeah.
And, they rekindled, and Al Costello said, "Hey, mate, I'm looking for a new partner, to reinvent the Kangaroos." And he invited Mickey to become one of the Kangaroos, and they did. They formed the tag team, but they were missing one key element. I say the key element.
What could that be?
Well, back in the day with the Fabulous Kangaroos, Al Costello and Roy Heffernan had Wild Red Berry as their manager.
Right.
Then Al Costello and Don Kent, the Fabulous Kangaroos, had George Cannon as their manager.
Yeah. Where are we going with this?
Al Costello and Mickey Doyle didn't have a manager yet.
Oh, my goodness. Who could they possibly find?
They took one of the best in the business, I think. They picked the Supermouth. So I was the manager for Al Costello and Mickey Doyle, the new version of the Fabulous Kangaroos. And we had a great time with it. The only problem was, after a few years, Al Costello was showing his age. He had been in the wrestling business for over 40 years at the time. He was getting up in age. It was hard for him to wrestle because of an incident that happened to him in Cincinnati years prior. That'll be for another episode. So what ended up happening is Mickey was on his own again. And we just happened to be in contact with Jim Lancaster, one of Mickey's Lou Klein training partners. And he was running a promotion down in Ohio. I think it was called Midwest Championship Wrestling. And he had a trainee of his that he was looking to get a little bit more experience, not really on his own, but to be mentored by another wrestler. So Jim Lancaster asked Mickey Doyle and myself if we'd be willing to take this kid under our wing and help him out. And we decided, yeah, he's a good-looking kid. And I think he made a name for himself over the years. I'm not sure, but his name was Al Snow.
Oh, yeah.
And we formed the Motor City Hitmen. And that was our next tag team that we had, great success with, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And
I can remember with Bruiser Bedlam, I think they were called the Sensationals at that time, Mickey and Al.
Yeah.
You weren't with them, but they came in. I didn't know Al. He had just broken into the business, and I did an interview with him, started with Mickey, and Mickey was fine, and I got to Al Snow, and he's just like a wackadoo. He's in outer space, and I had no clue what he was saying. But anyway.
Oh, he's a great guy, though.
Yeah.
A great friend to this day, and one of the most well-spoken wrestlers that I've ever known. Speaking about well-spoken, when I was managing the Motor City Hitmen, I did what I think is my worst promo of all time. I don't know what prompted it or who suggested it, but I'm doing TV promos, and somebody suggested that I do the promo in the form of rap. I'm a rocker. I love rock and roll. I love blues. I love heavy metal. Rap isn't my thing.
Yeah, you're the first guy I'd think of as a rapper.
And I can talk, but rapping is a whole different thing. So I go on TV and I'm, talking and trying to rap and be this, rapper, rocker, whatever, and it just didn't come off at all. And every time, I go back and see it, it just, gives me the heebie-jeebies just to think about how bad that promo was.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But then in later years for Mickey, stopped wrestling, pretty much again. But me and him would see each other all the time. We did a lot of road trips together. He was a big Detroit Red Wings fan, as I was. And there'd be times that, I'd go over to Mickey's house and we'd go down in his basement and he had a couple hockey sticks and, he'd open up one of the cellar doors and that was the goal. So I'd stand in front of the goal and he'd be shooting pucks at me or tennis balls and stuff. And we'd just be laughing hysterically the whole time, pretending we were Gordie Howe and Terry Sawchuk and all the great Red Wings of old. But then, Mickey still had that wrestling bug in him. He just couldn't give it up. He couldn't stay out of the ring. He still had that passion within him. And he did some shows on his own. And then he met up with, in Canada, a gentleman and great wrestler by the name of Scott D'Amore. Oh, sure. And they formed a wrestling school. And Mickey was one of the head trainers for it and put out some great talent.
Can-Am, Border City?
Yeah, Can-Am Wrestling and Border City promotion.
Wow,
and they had some great graduates out of that promotion.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, Terry.
Okay.
What do A.T. Huck, Terry Sullivan, Mickey Doyle, and Supermouth Dave Drason all have in common?
Well, let me see. You stumped me with this the first time you asked me, so I know. We're all members of the International Big Time Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yes, I'm very proud to say
Yes,
that
sir.
we all are. And, we love the promotion and we love that the respect that not only the promotion gives us, but the young guys who are working for this promotion, they're working hard and they're trying to make a name for themselves too. And, hopefully we can, as, Hall of Famers, we can lend some of our expertise and knowledge to them to help them make it better. The only other thing I would like to say about, if you want to know more about Mickey Doyle, from what, we have conveyed today, there's a new book out by a good friend by the name of Tim Keenan, and it's The Life and Times of Mickey Doyle. It's a short book, about 120 pages or so. It's an easy read.
It's excellent.
Yeah,
It
and you
really
can
is.
get a great insight of the life and times of our good friend Mickey Doyle.
One of the nicest guys in wrestling and one of the most respected men in wrestling.
Yep. And as customary, Terry, can you take us out with that introduction, as great as you always do, of what it would be to introduce Mickey Doyle?
That's right. Lord Layton would say, let's go to ringside and what's his name?
Yeah.
From Detroit, Michigan, 225 pounds, Irish, Mickey Doyle.
Really proud to say that I'm a part of IBW. I take pride in IBW that we are a family-run company. It's a fight. It's a sport. At IBW, tradition has always mattered. You're going to see world-class professional big-time wrestling at its best. This ain't no sports entertainment. This is professional wrestling.
International Big Time Wrestling's The Fix. Each and every week, your fix of IBW action. You want entertainment? Look no further than Rocks TV. International Big Time Wrestling!
Wrestling fans, if you like what you've seen, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also don't forget to ring that bell.